Good morning, Vietnam.
Oh, God.
Hello there, and welcome to Callum and Johnny Have a Podcast.
Close enough. I know you're doing this just to wind me up, so I'm not taking the bait. I'm not angry, I'm just very disappointed.
Hello there, and welcome to Untitled Film Podcast with Callum and Johnny.
Hey, got it.
I am Johnny.
And I am Callum.
And we are back for another week of exciting, fun podcasting.
Filmtastic. Sorry, I got twisted on my words there. Filmtastic podcasting.
I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted by that. So, this week we are here to talk about some movies, as ever. 2 movies, in fact. One old and one new.
Indeed we are.
And one new and one old.
And there is something linking them. Actually, probably one of the stronger links we've had in the 10 episodes that we've had.
So in the last few. And what are the rules first? Tell me the rules of our podcast.
Well, each episode we review 2 films which are thematically linked or linked by an actor or a director or some force that links the 2 films. And today the 2 films are going to be inspirational Brit flicks, of which there is a very strong subculture. And one film has to be fairly new at least, and one film has to be available online to watch, whether it's 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, or 1,000,000 years old. Just something that has to be around, available, that people can see.
And very quickly, without any pause or hesitation, what's the name of our podcast?
The Untitled Film Podcast with Callum and Johnny.
There was a hesitation.
There was a slight hesitation at the start.
As ever, there is a plea. If you have a better name, please give it to us. But why is it called the Untitled Film Podcast?
Because we couldn't think of something better. Oh, actually, no, we did think of something better. It was double feature, but that was taken.
It was. But what does untitled mean if you talk about untitled things in the film industry?
It's when a film is still in development, whether it's still in the script stage or it's being sold to studios. It'll often be untitled comedy movie. An example that you used, I think, on the very first episode was American Pie. It was something like the untitled comedy that will cost $10 million that the studios will hate, but the audiences will love, or something like that, something along those lines.
And why have I asked you to re-go through all these things?
Well, we're on episode 10.
11.
11, Jesus Christ. How time flies, people.
It's we've picked up some new listeners in the last few weeks from the statistics tell us. So just thought we'd do a little bit of cleaning house.
We've had a bit of a bump, and we're slowly growing up. We've started getting our first reviews, and if you do want to come and review us, give us 5 stars. Really helps us out.
If you want to give us 1 star, don't.
Yeah, bugger off.
Yeah,
that's what we say.
4 maybe, anything less than 4, don't review.
Time-wasting parasites to the left, as Beyonce would say.
Exactly. And so that's why we've done that. And speaking of which, there's something else that you can do to support the podcast, which is...
You can go onto our socials. We are under Untitled Film Podcast, one word, on Facebook and Instagram. And I can't remember what we're on Twitter, and I think that's a bit of a running joke. I think we have one post on Twitter made about 8 weeks ago, and we more or less abandoned it. But if we get...
Well, let's be honest, Twitter is fucked now because of Elon Musk.
Elon Musk is cutting the legs out from underneath it and pissing on its grave.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you have to sell $3 billion worth of shares from one of the other companies to keep your new company you just bought afloat, you done something stupid.
What a miserable little man on his miserable little website. But if we do get enough people and if we do get enough interest, we might find a way back there for its dying death throes. But you never know. So Untitled Film Podcast on Facebook and Instagram are the main ones.
I feel like Instagram's the one where the most action happens.
Most action and most fun as well.
Speaking of which, what action and fun happened on there this week?
Well, we asked the question. We asked people what films by the filmmaker Zack Snyder do you enjoy and why? And a defense.
I think we need to read the proper question because it was a masterclass in...
Johnny wrote it.
In
nuance, in subtlety.
Yeah, in a takedown. Let me get it up.
Man searches for something on Instagram.
That guy. What's our podcast called? Untitled.
It's Untitled Flippity Gibbet with the Tibbities and the Dibbities.
So, the question was, we all know Zack Snyder is an idiot who has no taste, never understands the material, and needs an editor more than we need to drink more water. But has he made any films that you like? And if so, why?
Zack Snyder is currently crying in his bedroom. He was just about to give us a big endorsement, and he's going to put it on all his social medias with his millions of followers. Follow these guys, but now he won't.
Well, I think you should follow it for questions like that. And we got a whole one reply.
Yes, and that's why you need to follow, because we want to open this up and make it a conversation, make it fun and groovy, slick and fun. But at the moment, we have one reply, and we would like more.
And we got one reply, and that reply is from someone called Dog Brains Video. Never heard of them, don't know anything to them or about them. But anyway, the original Man of Steel was on TV the other day. I like it! ! But I think that just because at the time Smallville had ended 3 years prior and was so hyped to see a new Superman take with a big budget at the time. But these days, ... I think it's the best Snyder film. Just because everything else he's done since is so bad in comparison. Why does everything look like it has the colour palette of tinfoil? And why do the physics in his films look like everything is underwater? Anyway, Man of Steel is my answer, even though Clark chooses to kill thousands of people in the final battle by slamming the baddies through skyscrapers when he could have just chucked them into space.
It's very true. And I understand that frustration with Man of Steel. I remember being very excited for it because I'm a big Superman fan. I love the 1975 Christopher Reeve Superman, and I love that whole hope, Lois. Hope is the key. And I'm a sucker for that. And the first thirds to half of the film gives you some of that. It does. And then it goes, nah, fuck it. Chuck him through a building, mate.
Yeah. I think it kind of started off, although I think some people found it a bit too slow-paced and things, but it kind of started off almost a bit of an exploration of his youth and his father issues and his Lois Lane.
And you can see there's inspiration with Terrence Malick, the camera work. It has that sort of handheld looking through the cornfield sort of stuff. And there's some stuff to like in there. And I think that is the most frustrating thing with Zack Snyder, is that he knows how to throw an image together every so often.
But that is Zack Snyder. Dare I say, he's a bit Michael Bayan in that he isn't a bad cinematographer, and he has some good ideas at times, more than Michael Bay does. But he doesn't understand the source material normally, and because of that, he fails to come up with something that feels like a properly finished product.
It's more of a compositor. He knows how to composite an image or a moment.
And any time that he gets close to making a good film, like with Watchmen or Man of Steel or 300 probably being his most complete, although I'm not a massive fan, he then just misses like the soul and the thought of the original source material. And I think that's the issue. I think that's And also, Doug Brain is right about the color palette of all his most recent films. Like, it was much better in Watchmen actually, but mainly because I suppose he was using the colors from the comic.
It was very much a case of copy the panels. Panel for panel.
But everything he's done with, like, when you think how, I know they were dark and brown, but how beautifully shot the Chris Nolan Batmans were, and to go from that to like, and also using all the practical effects and that kind of thing, to using like slow motion, muddy, brown,
very sludgy.
CGI, it's just hard to see what's going on, and it's just, nah.
If you had to choose a Zack Snyder film that you liked, or even just something about the man that you like, because you did call him an idiot.
Watchmen is probably the one, but that's probably because I like the source material and I like how it's shot, and I think they picked good character actors to play, or he or they or whoever picked them, picked good character actors to play all the roles. And again, it misses the point of the source material.
Completely misses the point.
But maybe it was quite a hard film to quite a hard book to put into 3 hours. Maybe it should have always been that HBO series that they threatened for years and never did. So, they did
have now.
Yeah, but that's a prequel, really, isn't it?
No, it's not a prequel. It's a post. It's
post
later on.
Then, yeah, so it's a bit different. But like they originally were going to do one that was was the story of the.
They've been trying to do a version of Watchmen since the 80s.
So maybe I'll cut him some slack on that one. But that's about it. I never really liked 300, but then I don't really like the story. I don't really care. So maybe that's why. Maybe that's not his fault. It's not a terrible movie. Man of Steel has its moments, but everything he's done since is fucking awful. I really despise everything he's done to the DCU or
DCEU thing.
Which actually brings me to the news. My first piece of news is it is being renamed the DCU, isn't it? And
I don't know.
James Gunn is taking it over.
Yes, he is.
So James Gunn of Guardians of the Galaxy, Marvel fame, who also did The Suicide Squad and also did the what's the guy from the John Cena one? What's it called?
Peacemaker.
Very
organised ship, this.
Yeah. Also did I know he's glugging beer over there, and I'm forgetting the name of the TV show. Yes, if you hear
slugging and gulping, that's what it is.
That's Callum drinking beer. But yes, he's a dreadful alcoholic. Yeah.
I need help, people.
But yeah, anyway. He is he is taking over with another guy, the DCU, as it's been renamed, and hopefully is going to write it with what seems like hundreds of Shazam-based movies, because there was Shazam.
The only one that's kind of done
and now Black Adam, which is a spin-off from Shazam, and then Shazam 2. So, yeah.
And there is a spoiler in the post-credit scene for Shazam, but I was going to say it, but I probably shouldn't, because there might be people who are listening. There's a big one. A reintroduction of someone.
But yeah, they're basically spinning off Shazam into 800 directions.
Because Shazam is the only one to really give you that sort of old school magic of old-fashioned Spider-Man and Superman and the early Batman films. It's the only one, other than Wonder Woman, but even Wonder Woman after the first film kind of stumbled at the second hurdle.
I feel like it was also probably quite inexpensive.
Yeah, probably comparatively, yeah.
But I actually have been... Everything that Zack Snyder didn't touch, I've quite liked. I know he was kind of involved in the first Wonder Woman, but I quite like the first Wonder Woman, or I have issues with it. I really love Birds of Prey. Absolutely fucking love it. Really liked The Suicide Squad, not Suicide Squad. I really like the Peacemaker TV show. I really liked Shazam. So yeah, pretty much everything I've seen that hasn't been really closely intertwined with the Schneider cinematic universe part of the DCU.
Even Aquaman has its moments.
Yeah, but that still feels quite Schneidery. It's still got all his DNA all over it. The ones that don't have his DNA are all over it are the best ones, in my opinion. But yeah. So I feel like knowing that I liked what happened with The Suicide Squad, and knowing how much the Peacemaker TV series is absolutely fucking brilliant, I'm quite excited by it. So yeah, that's my piece of news.
Well, that is very exciting. I do love James Gunn a lot, and I hope all the best for him. Apparently, everyone's very excited about him moving over from Marvel to DC. Everyone congratulated him. There was no bad blood or anything that, are made up stories on the internet that find their way. Everyone was very happy and cheering him along.
I also it's quite interesting that I feel like he's going to be very busy for the next few months. And the reason he's going to be very busy for the next few months is he's still finishing off Guardians 3. So he's going to be doing post-production on Guardians 3 and also taking over a whole cinematic universe. So,
what a mad lad.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my bit of news, it's a bit of a shame, because I was actually looking forward to this. Margot Robbie-led Pirates of the Caribbean spin-off, killed by Disney, Oscar nominee says. So there was this thing planned for a long time that because Johnny Depp is an unreliable fuck-up who can't get to a set on time, not drunk and not on drugs and not beating up security guards and what have you, they were going to do a spin-off of Pirates of the Caribbean with Margot Robbie, and I believe Karen Gillan was also involved at one point.
Well, that's two good characters, actually.
Absolutely, and Margot Robbie is the kind of actress who probably is an equivalent to Johnny Depp, quirky but also serious and enough thesp to kind of give it weight, but also give it fun. And she said that it was in development. They
should have brought back Penelope Cruz as well.
She's cool.
Character.
It was in development for a long time, but it just, like a lot of these things, eventually fell apart. So it's not going to happen, unfortunately. And that was something I was looking forward to.
I mean, I massively have nothing against them, and I think obviously horrendously the internet always turns on them. But I don't think that many female remakes of kind of or spin-offs of franchises have done that well. So maybe that was part of the thinking.
It probably was. They probably looked at the box office of things like Ghostbusters, the 2016 one.
I was thinking Ocean's 8 as well, which 8. I quite like. And it's better than Ocean's 12.
None of these films were out and out flops, but they were all disappointments. They were intended to make more money than they should, and they didn't.
I think the thing is, if you're Disney now and the film's not going to make over $750 million, why would you bother? Because you make a Disney animated film a year, a Pixar animated film a year, three Marvel movies a year, a Star Wars movie a year, and you've got then probably one room for like one other thing
slightly
every
quirky
year.
One.
Because otherwise you're going to be releasing a film every month and then they can start eating into each other. And why risk $200 million on something that's not going to make money when you've got something you think will?
Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, even with its lead figurehead of Captain Jack Sparrow, was starting to... It was wavering towards the end. I think the last one made something like 600 million compared to a previous 800 and a previous billion.
And
they
had to pay Johnny Depp like 70 million of that, so...
For him to just kind of stagger out and only do the close-ups.
And only turn up on certain days.
He's getting to that Steven Seagal period of his career.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe he's turned it around now, but we'll see.
We'll see.
My second piece of news is a piece of news from the world of podcasts, although it was also a HBO special. Have you ever heard or listened to the podcast My Dad Made a Porno? My Dad Wrote a Porno.
I love that podcast.
It's coming to an end after 6 seasons. And no movie.
Oh, too bad.
Community reference. But it is coming to an end. Apparently, the porno is at a point where they think it ends quite nicely, so they've decided to end it. They've had 2 live tours, 6 seasons, like 150 odd episodes. And yeah, that's it. But they said that it's not the end for the brand. Other things will happen, but it just seemed like a good place to end the podcast. So one day when our podcast is as big as that, we will probably end it.
Right, give us 5 stars. Give us 5 stars.
And share, like and subscribe, share and send to all.
If we whisper, it's subliminal.
What was the TV series that used to do send to all?
I do not know.
Michael McIntyre, or maybe it was Michael McIntyre. There used to be one of like or Jonathan Ross or something. They used to do a thing called Send to All, where they would each swap phones with each other and have to they could send any message they wanted, but to every single person in the message book and see what replies they got.
Interesting. I never saw that one.
Wow. There you go. Things that you should do. Get your friend's phone and send a message to every single person in it that says something like, would you fancy a pint? And then see who comes back. And if like random people, it's like your builder from 4 years ago goes, yeah, why not, mate?
Sounds quite fun. It does sound like a good idea. Shame it's already been done. We could have pinched it.
Wow. Well, that could be our podcast. Send to all a podcast. Anywho, on to your second bit of news. We go on a tangent somewhat.
We have some good box office news, and that's Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, has smashed the November record to be the highest grossing film to open in November, with $181 million in the US and 331.3 globally. It's not quite as high as the first Black Panther, which opened to 200 million, and slightly higher than 330 globally, but it's still excellent. It's the second highest opening this year after Doctor Strange and the Tibbity and the Bibbity, and it's it's a slow news week. I'm going to be honest. I was searching for about 15 minutes for something pretty good, and eventually I was like, fine, a Marvel movie opens to 180 million. How predictable.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting because I was fully expecting this to be a massive letdown disappointment because no Chadwick, sadly. But actually, I hear it's really good, and I hear it really pays nice homage to him, and I hear tears are involved if Kevin Smith's Twitter's anything to go by. So yeah, no, it's I'm actually quite excited, but more excited than I've been for a Marvel movie for a little while.
I understand that the tribute to Chadwick gives it weight that wouldn't have been there otherwise. So it gives it extra heft that is perhaps not necessarily in the material, but is just felt.
Exactly. And speaking of heft, on to our first movie full of heavyweight Welsh actors.
Is that really the link that we're going with?
That is the link I'm going with, and I am sticking by it. Shall I do the intro for this one?
Yeah, go.
And
go
you
for it.
can do
go
the
mad.
intro for DOS film. So, the film is called Save the Cinema. And it does what it says in the tin, really. It is set in Carmarthen in Wales, which is a sleepy town. I'm just trying to think of what it's known for. It's not an ex-mining town. But anyway, sleepy town in Wales. And there is a cinema there. And everyone loves the cinema, especially the children of the town who 4 or 5 times a year get to put on a play, which seems to have massive high production values and budgets. And every single person in the whole town seems to be incredibly talented at singing and dancing. And then something happens. Some evil property developer decides he wants to close down the cinema and build a shopping arcade with the mayor who is in his back pocket. And the town has to try and save it.
This is an incredibly bizarre movie. It's almost... So
I should say it's a true story as well.
So this week it's inspirational Brit flicks, and if there's anyone listening in America who's not familiar with this, that this is a particular trend of movies that we do here, and kind of almost exclusively here in the UK. Films about small local issues where you get a bunch of old actors together to kind of play regional, where they get to do their best Welsh accent in this case, or in the next movie that we're going to do, the best Northern accent. And it's always, we know what to expect from them. They're very typical. There are plot points that we expect, and we expect triumph over adversity. We expect, good versus evil with the small little guy and this inspirational stories, triumphing over the big baddies. But this one it's almost as if that's been filtered through one of those AI art filters that bring back incredibly bizarre results, like those apps that you can get on your phone where you type in something like Elon Musk wearing a banana for a hat, and it brings back this image that's sort of like a dream world sludge of an amalgam of a banana on Elon Musk's head. It's like nothing in this film makes sense or works at all. You got all these incredibly talented actors together. You got Samantha Morton, Cole Meany, Elon Musk. No, Elon Musk is not in this film. I've just said his name a few too many times. Tom Felton from the Harry Potter films. And you got 2 or 3 actors who I wasn't familiar with, but apparently they've been in 100 episodes of this American TV show or that American TV show. And you get all this talent together for this horribly shot, horribly scripted. It's nothing about it works. It's like it exists in a plane of reality all to itself. But despite that, despite everything I just said, despite knowing that the composition of the cinematography, awful, editing, terrible, the acting, serviceable, because most of them are good actors. You got Samantha Morton, 2-time Oscar nominee in there. You got Jonathan Pryce. I forgot the name of Jonathan Pryce playing the kindly old man. But even though nothing about it works, kind of enjoyed it. We watched it together. We had a pizza and kind of worked for that. Kind of worked for a mate in a pizza movie, What are your opinions on it?
Yeah, it was all right. I think that's pretty much sums it up.
Just ruined it.
So I should probably start off that I'm maybe slightly biased in that my family live near Carmarthen. So I've never been to the Carmarthen cinema. I've only been to Carmarthen once to the train station. But they live near there, so it's a nice local story about local people. I'm not Welsh. They're not Welsh. They've only moved there recently. I've to preface all this stuff, I feel like. But anyway, and it. Do you know what it most felt like to me? It felt most like a kind of more recent. I've forgotten his name. Love Actually.
Richard Curtis.
Richard Curtis. It felt like a more recent Richard Curtis movie in that it's an absolute fucking mess and more of a parody of one of these kind of British movies. But you still quite like it. Like The Boat That Rocks. The thing with all these films, these like if like most Americans, for our American audience, you'd have probably seen Notting Hill and stuff like that, and that's when you're at or Four Weddings and a Funeral or the Full Monty, which we'll talk about in a bit. That's when those movies go well and work and are really good. And then you've got things like The Boat That Rocked, which is one of Adam Curtis's newer films about a pirate radio station.
Richard Curtis.
Richard Curtis. What did I say?
Adam Curtis.
I like Adam Curtis a lot more than Richard Curtis. Yeah, somewhat different. And yeah, it's an absolute mess. Some of the Welsh accents in it from the non-Welsh. I assume they're non-Welsh. Tom Felton, is he Welsh?
No, he's not Welsh.
I was going to say, because his accent was not Welsh. And things like that were pretty terrible. I mean, the cinematography was obviously shot by someone who does TV. There was not a single shot in it where I thought, that's really well done.
And that's charitable, I think, because there were some shots that were just incompetent.
And it's so lopsided. Like the first 2/3 of the film happens and not really much happens, and it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. And then all the plot seems to happen in the last third of the film. And it doesn't really explain away how anything happened or how the first bit. I mean, this is quite hard to do without spoiling the movie. But I also feel like, can you spoil something that happened in real life? And the name of the title of the movie also kind of tells you what happens at the end. It's
a hard one to go down because you never know what people are going to expect.
But anyway, the title of the movie, the real bit of that happens in the last like 10-15% of the movie, maybe 20% if I'm being charitable. So what is happening in the first 80% of the movie?
They very much stretch out this plot line about how the evil mayor is going to knock it down and turn it into a shopping mall. And there are four or five attempts where someone is standing in front of a wrecking ball, or they lock themselves into the cinema, and they have to keep ringing out the same plot line, the same plot point even, about 5 times, because they realise, I don't think we don't have enough for a movie here.
And they also keep trying to add little bits of drama in, and it's like...
they get resolved immediately.
Yeah. It's like there's one point, I mean, this is in the first, like, half... I mean, I don't think any of you are going to care or ever watch this movie, but the first part of the movie, there's... for like 4 minutes of the movie, the protagonist and her husband have a mild tiff.
Yes.
And then it's over. It's over. And no, there's no really any resolution or anything happen. It just 1 minute there's a bit of a tiff. Oh, your father, he doesn't support me, you don't. That's my Welsh accent. And then it's like, oh, he's a lovely guy, your father.
It's better than Tom Felton's.
Well, exactly. Yeah, but I still quite liked it.
It's a bizarre experience. It's a very bizarre experience because, yeah, it's kind of mildly enjoyable in a sort of sitting around with a pizza sort of way. Yeah. But nothing about it works.
It would work I didn't watch this one on a plane, but it would work on a plane maybe.
I imagine it would.
If you were like if it was the time, not when you're actually trying to concentrate and watch a movie on a plane, but the bit when they're serving you dinner and you have to like take your headphones off a second, I'll have the chicken.
Can you stop hitting your microphone?
Sorry, Rob. And then they come round and then they come and say, oh yeah, I'll have a couple of beers as well, please, with that. And they that kind of time. And then they come and they take the plate away and you have to say, thank you, and stuff. That it kind of would work at that point on a plane.
Yeah, I can imagine it working on a plane or on a Sunday afternoon on a rainy day or something like that. It's very disarming in the way that, I like any film that has Samantha Morton in it, 2-time Oscar nominee Samantha Morton in the lead, and Jonathan Pryce in a supporting role, And people like Colm Meaney and that guy from Four Lions, whose name I can't remember.
I quite like him, though.
I like him too. I like all these people.
No, he's not Rubberdingy Rapids. That's Face Jacker, but the other guy.
Yeah. And, you know, it's very disarming because, you know, you watch those guys, you watch those people, and you go, okay, I can watch this. I can sit and enjoy these people, even if the material given is the most fluffy thing. But it is bizarre. Like, it's almost like like you said, it's almost like a parody of a inspirational Brit flick, in that it's almost like they're taking the piss out of things because the plot lines are so wrenched for drama. Like, oh no, they have a tiff. Ah, no, it's over. Oh, she's locked herself in the cinema and they might knock it down. Ah, they won't. Every plotline kind of goes like that.
I feel like as soon as you call something Save the Cinema, though, it's not... I mean, it would have to be a real curveball for the cinema not to get saved. I
found myself thinking by the hour point, I couldn't give a fuck if this cinema is saved. Because usually the thing that makes these inspirational Brit flicks work is that the thing that they're fighting for, even if it seems frivolous, even if it seems frothy on the surface, and we'll talk about this with the full Monty, it has to be something that's, if it doesn't work out, has real emotional devastation for the people involved. Their lives, their jobs. A really great example is the film Pride, where if the things don't work out, so many people will lose their jobs and the discrimination will get worse and worse for the characters. Here it's like, oh no, they might lose a building that they all love. And even at one point, the dad says, it's like, if they bring this mall in, and I'm not going to attempt a Welsh accent, Johnny, this is how you do it.
If they bring this mall in.
If they bring this mall in, now I'm doing it. If they bring this mall in, they'll bring jobs into the community. And it's like, oh.
He did it. Into the community.
Into the community. And there's
Postman Pat.
The strange thing is that okay, that could be interesting. That's a dilemma there. That's an interesting dilemma. Do you save a building that people love or give jobs back to the community? And they resolve it by going, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to save the cinema. Oh, well, why bring it up in the first place?
Can you be careful of the levels, please?
Sorry. Spat on the thing as well.
Disgusting.
It's very bizarre. Like, why bring these things up at all if it's going to have no weight whatsoever? Like, okay, the cinema closes. That's too bad. Who cares? Who actually cares, other than the 5 little old ladies who go to see a film later on in the movie?
The children, that's who cares. Won't you think of the children, Carmen? Won't somebody please think of the children?
I'm sure they can find somewhere else.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
I'm sure they can find somewhere else to put on their twee fiddly dee productions of Oliver.
Well, how rude. Also, just an aside, but a very important one. Seemingly, every single set from every single play that had ever been put on there was still in the gantry, because if they wanted to turn the stage into a living room, they press a button and that was from the version of Hamlet we did 17 years ago.
They bring up a full king-size bed that she can sleep on.
It was just out the back because, oh yeah, we did King Lear 14 years ago. I assume there's a king-size bed in King Lear, hence the name King. But
I don't think that's how it works, but
wow.
Sure, why not?
Anyway. So yeah, Save the Cinema. We both absolutely loved it. Thought it was the best film of the year.
It's oddly disarming. It is an oddly disarming film. I think that's the best way to describe it. I mean, I didn't dislike watching it, but nothing about it worked. It was weirdly disarming.
Anyway, on that note, bow, 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 now, bow, now, bow.
Where'd you go?
Bow.
You sexy thing.
You're not allowed to sing. You can hum, but you can't sing.
So you're a hypocrite.
I wasn't singing.
You've sung in previous episodes.
Only to Paddington. Only to
Well, no, let's not sing that again, because then we'll just get into Paddington again.
Or Rob will just put it at the end of the podcast.
I know, that was a lovely little touch.
Anyway, on to movie number dos.
And this is a film from 1997. Many would consider it the Mac Daddy of inspirational Brit flicks. This is the film, this and Billy Elliot are the film that other inspirational Brit flicks are trying to be when they're being inspirational Brit flicks. It's The Full Monty, the multi-Oscar nominated film about 6 unemployed steel workers. They're out of work. It's set in Sheffield when all these factories have been closed down. They're all on the dole for our American listeners.
What did they used to make in Sheffield as well? What are the factories that were shut?
The steel.
Yes, good.
I thought I said that for some reason, but maybe I didn't.
You didn't say steel, you said factories were shut.
So the steel factories were shut, and so the 6 main characters, they're on the dole, they're unemployed, and to our American listeners, that's our version of unemployment. Have to go to this horrible, grotty little place and do kind of courses where you can get back into work.
What do you mean? It's called the Job Centre Plus.
Oh, yes, sorry, forgot about that.
The plus, don't forget the plus colour.
But it wasn't in 1997.
It was I don't know. When did they have the plus on the end?
Who knows, frankly. And
you can write into us podcast.
Yes, I would love to know.
When did they add the plus onto the end of the Job Centre?
And the lead character, played by Robert Carlyle, one day he's passing a stage that's showing a Chippendale show with leagues of women kind of out the door. It's kind of huge hit, and he only gets joint custody of his son, so he only sees him on kind of odd weekends, and their relationship is quite fraught. And that's when he comes on, he gets an old light bulb above his head, and he convinces him and his friend, played by Mark Addy, to put on a Chippendale show, but they need to recruit more people, eventually recruiting Tom Wilkinson's character, who is sort of the one who's
their former boss.
The former boss. He puts on airs that he's still respectable. He pretends to go to work. He lies to his wife that he goes to work, but he's just as unemployed as that.
And feeds the ducks.
Yes. And him, so the 3 lead characters, played by Robert Carlyle, Mark Addy, Tom Wilkinson, they need to recruit a whole group of guys to put on this show and to give them a bit of dignity back. And so, Johnny, what did you think of the Mac Daddy, the big boss, the numero uno of inspirational Brit flicks?
Yeah, it was all right.
Well, what is wrong with you today? Put on a bit of showmanship, man.
I'm just hilarious. It's really good, isn't it? It's really good.
It is good.
Yeah.
2 beers in, by the way.
I don't know how to describe it. It kind of doesn't get anything wrong. The pacing is perfect. The acting is perfect. It's a great story that's fun, but also has real depth to it, and you really care about the characters. It was, when it came out, it was a time when this was a massive problem in the UK. It still is in some ways, but it was particularly a massive problem when the UK was post-Thatcher and post-industrial, and it kind of shone a light into what was going on in a lot of people's lives. And there's a couple of really, quite important scenes in it where characters are trying to commit suicide and stuff, which is how you've lost your whole livelihood. You don't see a way out. There's this whole, not to get too political, but the whole image of people, obviously, people just want to be on the dole. People, they don't want to work. Well, no, what people want is a respectable job that keeps a roof over their head. Most people have self-respect and want that kind of thing. And as Callum rightly said, this is a film about people grabbing onto something and getting their self-respect back. And yeah, it works on every level. It's a really good social commentary. It's even quite it's not, I'm not going to say it's a masterpiece of shooting, but it's certainly far better shot than most of these the most British films. I'm sorry, but British films aren't actually that well shot.
Ugly.
There's just a lot of TV lighting in them. It's why I struggle to watch British dramas and stuff. It's just all very flat lighting. Feels like they've lit it in the same way as they would a soap, and it annoys me greatly. But yeah, anyway, and yeah, it gets that kind of depravity in Sheffield and stuff really well, and it's really fun and uplifting. So it kind of ticks every box, and it doesn't stay too long. It ends perfectly at the right time. It doesn't try and be silly with it all. I can't really fault it.
It's very intelligently told. It does find its balance, as you say, between the comedy and the serious social commentary. To show just how global this is, it's understandable why this was such a breakout success, first at the Oscars, going on to be nominated for 4 Oscars. And it's very rare that British films do this, especially British films that they probably had no intention of putting it for an Oscar run until it started playing as well as it did. Because it's a very unique thing. And every country in the world has its factory or whatever industry in that particular state or particular country
Sheffield's
shuts
our
down.
Detroit for
Exactly, and that's why the musical, the Broadway musical, is set in Detroit, and I'm sure it's been adapted, that musical, in many countries, and they replace it for whatever it is, because it is a very universal thing. It's also interesting that the talent that they have here, you have 3 lead actors who at the time were not famous. I mean, now we take for granted that Robert Carlyle, Mark Addy, and Tom Wilkinson are very well-respected actors who've worked in both Britain and America. But here, it's kind of some of their first jobs. Robert Carlyle had a little bit of clout because of Trainspotting, but he wasn't yet the Robert Carlyle. This was the film that made him Robert Carlyle movie star. And unlike Save the Cinema, which was kind of littered with Samantha Morton, 2-time Oscar nominee, Jonathan Pryce, a bunch of actors from Harry Potter and a bunch of syndicated American television shows, yet you couldn't feel any weight beyond the froth. Where here, the froth is just an accent to something that is very serious, of people who are really at their lowest ebb. They're lying to their partners, they're considering or attempting suicides, when you take people's jobs away, it does get very serious, and they try to find ways in which to alleviate that, either through something horrible or through what they do, and eventually finding that kind of nugget of dignity that they can reclaim.
The other thing I thought that was quite well done in it, and was quite, I think probably for the mid-90s, was quite forward-thinking, was how well they kind of portrayed a couple of gay characters in it, and how well everyone else in the film went, oh, look, those two, they're gay. That's nice. And then just kind of, it was just it. It was just, it normalized. Like, that wasn't kind of normalizing things in
certainly not in the mid-90s, and certainly not in Britain. We were still very much in the kind of nudge, nudge, wink, wink, whoa, look at them, whoa, kind of comedy when it came to gay characters and depictions of LGBT romance. There's really not a lot to fault with this film. I must say that the inspirational Brit flick is not one of my favourite subgenres. So even at the best of the best of the best of the best of the tippy top of the mountain, of which this is, I still have a ceiling for how much I like them, just because the particular collection of tropes isn't as winning to me as other subgenres or other genres. But even so, that's not even a criticism about the film. It's doing everything perfectly. Even so, this film does everything. It is one of the exceptional examples of it, along with Billy Elliot, Pride. And like all those films, Billy Elliot, Pride, they are able to give weight to what it is that's causing them to need to find the inspirational thing. The problem with Save the Cinema is that something so local and small, you do find yourself going, okay, it's a kind of a fun movie, but who cares about this theatre in the end? I mean, it's a shame if it gets knocked down, but let's be honest, not really. Whereas this is like, okay, but this is a real tragedy, what's happening to these men. They really are at their lowest end. And doing this thing, even if it's just for one night, will give them a sense of pride, a sense of dignity that they can carry with them, even if... And what I like about the film is that it doesn't provide a solution. One of the characters, because we can spoil... for new listeners, we can spoil the older movie. One of the characters, the foreman, played by Tom Wilkinson, does eventually get another job. And by that point, everybody's happy for him. So there's one mildly happy ending for one character, but the other characters still have to go back to the dole after they've done this. And I like that they don't kind of cop out and say, oh, and then he found a job, and he found a job, and look who just won the lottery. Yeah,
although I would say, the whole point, they all had a thing or a couple of things that they needed the money. Spoiler alert, they're making some money out of stripping. They all needed the money for something or other, like Robert Carlyle's character now can keep his kid and stuff like that. So, there was some things, but yeah, it wasn't like, what would happen in like, and also this is not just a British thing, but an American thing. You have a freeze frame and then it cuts to each person's face and then it's next to it, it goes, they'll start dancing again. It'll go, Robert Carlyle's character, he was on the dole for 3 more months, but then somebody who'd seen him that night at the thing gave him a job. And then the other character, they were gay and moved to San Francisco because of that's what the kind of shitty thing they do at the end of these films and go in for stereotypes and stuff. And then the other thing happened and blah, blah, blah. And Tom Wilkinson, he lived for another 9 years until his retirement. And then he moved to Spain with his wife. Woo! It didn't do that, which is good.
No, absolutely. It didn't do that. And I can't kind of praise the actors enough. They really get the tone. They really, because there are some very silly moments. Like Tom Wilkinson's character has this fixation with his garden gnomes. He's very possessive of his material goods. And he's going for this job. And outside the window, the other lads, and at this point, they still don't like him because he was their former boss. And so, they're trying to pull him down a peg because he's still acting as if he's their boss, even though they're all on the dole together. And outside the window, they're playing with the garden gnomes and smashing them together. So there are moments of great silliness. So despite all the weight of what's going on, I mean, even the idea of stripping is a very funny one because of at one point, Tom Wilkinson says, "You're fat. He's thin, and you're both fucking ugly." And so it knows how to find that balance between the silliness and the seriousness. And when it's silly, it's very silly indeed. Like, you do have scenes where they're half naked. They're only in these kind of little thongs that they've bought. And then the police come. And that's such an English film trope. It's like, "Oi, you! Come back here!" Swinging the baton as they're... exactly. But it's Benny Hill. It's Benny Hill. Running around in these leather nappies as they're kind of jumping over garden walls. So it does have a great sense of fun and good-humoured fair play in its silliness. It's not one of those films that it's like, "Oh, this is the funny bit. This is the funny bit. Look out for it. Here comes the funny bit." Maggie Smith says something very cutting in Downton Abbey. "Oh, you're American, you say?" "Oh, was that the comedy bit that we just missed?" I couldn't tell because there was nothing in that was a joke. But yes, it finds its balance very securely. It's very comfortable with its tone, and it never feels like it's whiplashing between serious, silly, as some of these movies can often do.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
What is up with you today?
I had another thought actually. So with these inspirational Brit flicks, they're a huge draw in the UK. Like when they're on so we go to a cinema called the Curzon, and the Curzon is a little posh cinema.
It just opened a 5-screen multiplex.
Yeah, there's a big posh cinema now. Leather seats. They serve you beer and chips at your table, at your seat. Anyway, and we go there. But it's the kind of place that Middle England go to. It's not like a bargain basement cinema. And anytime something like one of these films comes out, like Ad Fab, the movie, or Downton Abbey, the movie, or anything like that, they sell a lot of seats, but they also sell a lot of Prosecco and a lot of strawberries and cream and shit like that. So they're big. They really boost, especially like in the summer months when maybe the cinema's a bit quiet. They really boost the cinema industry in the UK. And I think it's done this thing where it's actually now started massively permeating into other movies. And the one that comes to mind that I really, the more I think about it, the more I hate this movie is The Finest Hour.
I never saw that one.
You've never seen The Finest Hour?
Is that the one with Gemma Arterton?
No, The Finest Hour is the Churchill one.
Oh, yes, I did see that. Sorry, I'm mixing it up with another film. With Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman in a fat suit. And that whole bit on the train at the end where like, do you think we should go to war? How about you? Yes, Mr. Churchill. We're all with you, Mr. Churchill. Clap, clappity, clap, clap. Yes, go for it, Mr. Churchill. You can do it. We believe in you, Mr. Churchill.
Yeah, that film is utter wank.
And I really fucking hate that trope. And I think that when you're saying, "Oh, these films really annoy me," blah, 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 I think it's actually permeating into other bits of British cinema. And that's the bit the distilled bit I hate about it. But that's actually something that the full Monty doesn't do at all. And also other films that, again, where you could say this genre is slightly permeated into, Paddington 2. But again, Paddington 2 doesn't do the wanky bits, the shitty bits, the bits that you hate from these movies, or, we all hate from these movies. And I think that, for me, in my head, is the difference between these two. There's this certain, like, British wankiness that permeates into these feel-good movies. And when you manage to get one of them without that in there, then it's usually a good movie. But they're few and far between.
I think it's about finding the balance between the froth and, like we said, the silly bits and the inspirational stuff, which often is very, well, like we said, wanky, but we're overusing this word, but it's incredibly wanky. There'll be a moment where the film stops so a character can give a speech about, oh, we need to stand up for ourselves, and everybody starts applauding. And
we'll fight on the beaches.
And apply that.
This is my Churchill's speech.
But it's all about applying that to the weight. So, I mean, it's something like the finest hour, the darkest hour, whatever it's called. Fuck it.
The finest. Is it darkest?
No, finest hour, finest. You're right. But who cares?
Winston Churchill fat suit.
Is that it should have weight. It's about the war, but they overdo the sentiment. Whereas I think here we never get away from the idea that these guys are out of work and that there is no work for them, and the only jobs that are for them. So when Mark Addy's character momentarily, briefly becomes a security guard at a supermarket, yes, at an Asda,
which was previously part of the Walmart group, not anymore.
Yes.
For you American listeners.
And even the jobs they can get are incredibly dehumanizing. So you're never far away from that thought. So even when there is a moment where, well, like finally, when they give the big dance and everybody cheers and their happy ending has come, you're never far away from that thought. It's similar to Billy Elliot. You're never far away from the fact that that northern mining town in Billy Elliot is absolutely fucked beyond repair, regardless of what happens to Billy. Or in Pride, that no matter how good the ending is, where the miners and the LGSM are marching, one of those characters is going to die very shortly of AIDS. Sorry for spoiling another movie, but that was an older movie, and if we come
it's
to
not
it,
that
we spoil
old,
it.
Callum.
Well, whatever.
Spoiler alert. Sorry, guys, too late for the spoiler alert.
Too late for the spoiler alert, but it's old enough for us.
He's had a whole beer.
A whole bit. Well, actually, not even one. I've got about a third of this left. But even so, you're never, even when the moments of cheering happen, you're never far away from this idea that these people are absolutely fucked. So it manages to find, when it's done right, it finds a balance between the syrup is never too syrupy, but it's just the right amount of sugar to let you leave the cinema with a bit of a skip in your step.
Yeah. But on a depressing thought, that's where Britain's going right now. So anyway, let's move on from that.
Yeah. No politics, please. We're British.
Well, I do lots of politics. Follow me on Instagram for my political hot takes. The Tories are shit. If you didn't realise, that's one of my political hot takes. Anyway, so let's go on to reviewing some things, because I think we are, summing up some reviews, because I think we've finished reviewing both movies. So, number uno, Save the Cinema. I know this was one of your favourites of the year, Callum. Can you sum it up and give me a number out of 10?
This is one of those cases where giving an objective rating out of 10, it's a little bit hard, because I do find myself enjoying it in a weird way, but
it's
objectively,
kind of endearing, yeah.
Yeah, kind of oddly endearing was, I think, what I said. But I can't let that pass, that just how bad a lot of it was. So I think 3 out of 10, and I'm giving it 1 for just the kind of with a pizza or a cup of tea on a rainy day, this would be quite lovely. Otherwise, it's totally froth, but not in a good way, just in a kind of sickening sort of way.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. Like, it was fun to watch and nothing more. And not even, the whole thing wasn't fun. It was only an hour and 45 minutes long, and it could have been 20 minutes shorter.
Could have been half an hour, frankly.
Yeah, exactly. I just out of kindness, out of human kindness, I'm going to give it 4.
That's very kind.
So yeah, if you have a pizza to eat and nothing to watch, and you're on Now TV, because that's where it is for free, or on Sky, because
find something else to watch on Now TV.
Yeah. June's on there. That would be my advice. I haven't even watched June yet, but yeah, it looks good. And secondly, the hot chocolate movie.
Was the Full Monty?
I know, I'm taking the piss right now.
Well, the Full Monty is, it's an enduring film. I've probably seen it half a dozen times over the years, just because it's been on TV. It's been on ITV at 9:00 on a Wednesday evening, and it's always a film that you stop to watch because it's always good fun. It finds a good balance. It's tonally. It knows exactly what it does. It's a star-making film, in a very unexpected star-making film for the three lead performers. I must admit that these inspirational Brit flicks, even at their best, are never the thing that I would stop and watch myself. Like, if there was something else on, I would probably try it. Before settling on the Full Monty, I'd probably try and find that something else. So even at its best, I can't give it like a 10 or a 9. So I think 8 out of 10.
I would just like to say, I've written on this piece of paper. What have I written on here?
I will give it an 8.
Hey! I know him too well. He didn't even tell me that before. I was just listening to what he was saying in his review, and I was like, he'll give it an 8. And he did. I am going to one-up Cal and give it a 9, because I think it's pretty perfect for what it does.
Cool.
I really like it. I think it really works in a lot of ways. The only one I'm taking out of it is because I don't think it's particularly exciting cinematography-wise, and I don't think it... I think that's it. It doesn't pop. It doesn't have like a zest to it.
It's competently made, but nothing beyond competent.
So it's not perfect. There is one area for improvement, but other than that, I think it's perfectly paced. I think the script's good. I think it's funny. I think it's hard hitting. I think it works on every level.
I think I agree with all that. Except for the rating.
Yeah. So we have given Save the Cinema a 3.5 out of 10 between us, and we have given the Full Monty an 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, 8,
so
8
go and watch the Full Monty. Is the conclusion.
And we watched it on Disney Plus in the UK. I have no idea where it is in the rest of the world. Go find it yourself, though.
Good luck. And
you're smart people. Figure it out.
Bye.
Bye. It's a bit of a shambles, that episode, wasn't it?
And then they... Sorry, Rob.